All right, let's go ahead and do the video on the Tippmann crossover. So, fortunately, this gun hasn't sold very well. It's one of those things. It's like that saying that says, you know, what is it? The hunter that chases 2 rabbits comes home with none. So, you know, it's really difficult for a company to make something that's going to appeal to the airball players, the Power Rangers, along with the woodsball players, the G.I. Joe guys. So it's really difficult to get something that is going to appeal to both. I think that's kind of what Tippmann did here with the crossover, was they tried to make a gun that would appeal to both genres of paintball, both woodsball and airball. And I think it kind of confused more people than anything else. And it's also a mech gun. So it's, you know, it's a Tippmann gun that can be used on the airball field, but can also be mechanical, and it's also, you know, got electronics in it as well. So it really does a lot of things. Just unfortunately, it doesn't seem like any one of those 4 types of players are going out there and scooping these things up. You know, the mech players aren't picking it up. The airball players don't seem to be picking it up. Woodsball players a little bit. You know, electronic players aren't really picking it up. But, you know, let's go ahead and start taking this gun apart, and maybe we can get into some answers as to why. Okay, first thing we're going to do here is, there's not much really to see here in the box. You got a barrel sock, you got a jerk swab, you know, a couple extra parts here, a couple extra O-rings, Allen keys, very, very basic barrel sock. Very basic, you know, packaging. Not much really to that. That's okay. Now, I know when these guns came out, what are they selling for? In the mid-400s. Now they're selling for in the mid-300s. Actually, I think in the mid-300s is a little bit closer to what the gun should be selling for. And let's go ahead and weigh the gun, and we'll go ahead and turn it on. So as you can see, we go ahead and turn it on. 2 pounds, 6 ounces. That's not incredibly heavy. It's a little bit heavier than, what was that, about 3 ounces heavier than the Dye DM13, you know, 3 ounces. That's not a lot, you know, that's not incredibly heavy. Let's go ahead and take it apart. Now, the first thing I noticed is the barrel that comes with this gun, you know, the honing on it on the inside isn't the best. It's not the worst. I put it a little bit above the stock Smart Parts ion barrel. It's a little bit better than that. It's not quite like a CP barrel or an ultralight, but you know, there is, you know, they could go a little bit better on the finishing on the inside of the barrel, but I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to dramatically kill accuracy. Another thing here, this piece right here, this is just a foregrip. It's pretty much almost completely hollow, there's pretty much nothing in here. It's hollow all the way up to where it screws in, and there's really nothing in here that you need to take apart. So next thing we're going to do here is let's go ahead and take apart the bolt. And there's a lot of comments on the internet about, man, this thing's, you know, a lot like an automag, you know, and yeah, more like a new mag than anything else. You know, the automag was a straight mech gun. This is more of you know, a piloted solenoid gun. So it's more like a new mag than anything else. Let me get the spring out. But it does, you know, when you take a look at it, you do see the power tube. You know, that bolt is very, you know, reminiscent of an automag bolt. And, you know, the spring here, almost the same type of tension you would expect to see with an automag. Even has the, you know, I mean, it's pretty much an automag, you know, in terms of the bolt operation. Now, how the gun actually fires, no, it's not like an automag, but the bolt itself definitely looks a lot like an automag. So we're gonna go ahead and leave that out. Let's set that down over here. Now what we're gonna do is to remove the grip frame. We're gonna remove the grips here where we can get into and see where the battery goes in. Now on here, you've got 3 on the selector switch, and this is a pretty stiff selector switch. So this isn't anything in the middle of the game you're gonna accidentally shut off or anything like that. The detents on that are very, very crisp. It's not anything that you're gonna, it's not gonna, you know, flop from one end to the other on accident. Okay. Now to remove the grip frame, you need to remove the grip here, and then the selector switch actually goes back past the safety point. One last screw. Okay. The selector switch actually moves one click past the safety, and then you can just push it or pull it out. Out it goes. Okay, so you push this one click past the safety, it kind of goes down here where the nut is that you screw the screw in for the grip, and it just slides right out. Now from here, you can go ahead and remove the grip frame screws. Now when shooting this gun, the gun does have, you know, quite a bit of vibration to it, or kick, as a lot of people like to say. Even though, you know, paintball guns really don't have a lot of kick, but the gun does have a lot of vibration to it. A lot from the you know, that bolt going back and forth, because you know, this feels, you know, I don't know if it's necessarily stainless steel, but it feels a little heavier than aluminum. But the bolt itself does have a little bit of weight to it, and you do feel vibration through the gun when you shoot it. So now once you remove that selector switch out, it just drops right out. So you can see that little pancake solenoid in here, and you can see this trigger mechanism, and when you air the gun up, that little pilot, or that little pilot valve there that you can use it to, that fires the solenoid here. Now I have heard some people talking about removing the spring inside here for a gentler trigger pull. I would definitely recommend doing that. I mean, obviously Tippmann's going to put it in there for a safety thing, but removing that trigger spring is going to give you a considerably lighter trigger pull. It's going to be more in line with what you would expect from an electronic gun. Another thing that they did here, now this was really cool, because I don't think I've seen a paintball gun company do this yet, is you notice on the eyes, you see the eye ribbons, okay, that run from the back to the front. You notice how when I took apart the grip frame, I didn't have to disconnect the eye wires from the board on here. What they did was they put these little spring connectors on the back here, and in this way you can just simply slide the trigger frame away without having to remove the eye wires from the board. And that is actually a really, really smart thing to do. It's gonna save customers probably thousands of dollars, you know, collectively over, you know, having to send their guns in and get them repaired and stuff like that. You know, you figure, you know, if you could save people, you know, 80 or 90 crossover owners the cost and expense and hassle of mailing their gun in for ripped eye wires or having to install it themselves, that's a really, really slick thing that they did. I was actually really impressed to see how that would be. I mean, can you imagine, like on the Planet Eclipse of the die guns, not having to pull out the Molex connectors for your solenoid or your eye wires because you've got those little springers. You just slide the grip frame away, clean it all up, snap it back together again. I mean, that's just, I don't know, that was just really cool. When I looked at that, I was really careful taking the grip frame apart because I was afraid that the eye wires are going to be connected to the board somehow, but they're really not. So just wanted to point that out because that's definitely really cool. The next thing, if you wanted to take this apart, now I'm gonna take this out because I want to show you one of the places that I strongly recommend that you Loctite when you get the gun in. There's one screw that holds this whole mechanism together. Okay, there's that one screw right there, and that's what holds the trigger pack onto the the trigger pack and the solenoid onto the gun. I definitely recommend that you Loctite this screw down with just a little bit of blue Loctite. There's going to be a lot of vibration going through this gun, and it will vibrate the screws loose inside of the gun if they're not Loctited down. But I mean, I wouldn't talk about putting a lot of it, just a little bit. So just to prevent it from, just to prevent it from coming loose and leaking, which is what happened to us during the efficiency test. Go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit of lube here where this all comes together. Slide that all back together again. And that's it for the taking apart the trigger frame. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take apart the going to take apart the regulator. Regulator is very, very, very simple to take apart. Simply, the first thing I would do is mark or have an idea of where your threads are. You know, how many threads do you see before you take this out? What that's going to do is going to kind of give you a general ballpark of where you can start, or where you can, when you reinstall it, where you were at before. Just say it might save you a little bit of paint at the chronograph. Pull out the spring. Let's go ahead and pull out the piston. Okay. And that's it for servicing the regulator. I will say that when I took the regulator apart for the first time, I did see some metal shavings down into the body. So I would recommend that when you do get your crossover in the mail, go ahead and take apart the regulator and take apart the bolt, and just, you know, take a Q-tip like this and swirl it around on the inside and see if you pick up, yes, there's a little bit on there. See if you pick up any metal shavings or anything that may have just come in from the machining process. So, you know, I can definitely see, you know, little bits of metal on there by swabbing around a little bit of lube. Not really that big of a deal, but I would definitely recommend, you know, running that Q-tip through there just to make sure that, you know, that doesn't get stuck up into your gun, blow a valve, or something like that. I mean, I almost always, anytime I get a gun in, I always read the manual and figure out how to take it apart anyway. Okay, and some of the places that I recommend that you Loctite this gun together is going to be your clamping feed neck. I strongly recommend that you Loctite this on there because ours rattled loose when we were out there playing. And I would also recommend Loctiting the 2 screws that hold the grip frame on, along with that 1 screw that holds the trigger pack in. So if you Loctite those, you know, 4 things, you really shouldn't have any problems, but do look for, with the amount of vibration this gun has, those will vibrate loose if you're not careful. So let's go ahead while I put this back together again. We'll head back out and do an efficiency test, and then we'll come back for the conclusion. So we got 44.29 in the tank, and we're sitting right at about 104 degrees on the tank. First shot came out good. Looks like they dropped a little bit, so let's turn this up. All right, let's turn it back down. I mean, I think we're getting some hot shots because we probably got a big bore barrel shooting like 680, 6 paint. So I think we're just getting some hot shots, but you know, we're floating right around about 290, but we're going in between the mid 280s to the low 300s. So, all right, we'll roll with this. with it. We got pretty much 7 pods, and once we froze the gun up. So as you can see, you got the condensation here. Once it got to about, it was 500 or 600 psi with the condensation, we got an air leak through the trigger frame. Okay, I think I figured out what happened here. Looks like this rear screw came loose, and as you can see here on the grip frame, the leak stops, turns on, leak stops, turns on. So that's what it looks like. This screw came loose here on the back of the trigger frame. So just as a note for you crossover owners, you may want to Loctite these screws. Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish up the conclusion on the crossover. You know, I'm going to tell you that there is a lot about this gun to like. Okay, there is a lot about this gun to like. Now, you also will like this gun a lot more if you consider this gun a mech gun first and an electronic gun second. Okay, if you consider it an electronic gun, then you're going to put it against other $300 guns that are on the market, such as the Rail, the G4, the Mini. Okay, you're going to put it against those guns, and obviously in a purely electronics context, you know, those guns are going to probably beat it out just because they're a lot lighter, a lot simpler, a lot quieter. A little bit more consistent over the regulator and stuff like that, or over the chronograph. But if you consider this gun a mech gun, okay, so if you compare it against guns like, you know, like autocockers, and automags, and you know, other mech guns that are out there, other Tippmann guns that are mech guns, and Azodens and stuff like that. That's where it really starts to shine when you just look at this gun as a mech gun. There's a lot of technology in the gun. I mean, I know the bolt's a little bit dated, you know, because they're pretty much using, you know, old power tube like automatic bolt. But, you know, when you really look at this gun, like what I showed you with the eyes, when you take a look at how the trigger is designed, I mean, that's a really nice trigger design. I mean, it's even better than the MacDev triggers, you know, in terms of how it's curved and stuff like that. You know, the feel of the gun in your hands, it feels great inside of your hands. It feels kind of like the old Bob Long Marks. You know, just smooth lines. If you get it shot up, it's very easy to clean off. Clamping feed neck's not too bad. You know, regulators down at the bottom. Something I really like about the regulator is they extended the ASA back a little bit, probably about a ½ an inch, which allows you, depending on what kind of a tank you have, whether you've got a Ninja tank or even like the Gorilla air tanks with the really short regs, you can still screw it into the gun, no problem at all. You know, and you also look inside the reg, and you know, inside of the ASA, and you can see there's tons of air. The way how they design it, tons of ways for the air to get into the regulator. Very simple designed regulator. But there is a lot about this gun to like, especially now that they've dropped the price of selling for in the mid 300s right now. You know, the on-the-fly capability, being able to switch from, you know, in this case I've got it set on PSP 12.5 balls per second to mech, is just awesome. Okay, if you're out there and you're playing, let's say you're playing a woods ball game and you really want to conserve paint, but you don't really want to get a pump gun, you know, you can keep this thing in mech only all day long, and then if you really get into a really vicious firefight, click it into the electronic mode and just get into it. So, you know, but there is an awful lot to like about this gun. Is it going to be the best mid $300 gun to use on the airball field? Not necessarily, you know, but, you know, if you consider that, let's say for instance you've been thinking about getting, say for instance you play a little bit of airball, you play a little woods ball, you play a little pump, or you've been thinking about getting in a pump, you want something that's going to help you conserve your shots, but you only want to carry one gun to the field, this is what I would get. You know, because in mech mode is where this gun really shines. I would say 80% of what you're paying for with this gun is an amazing mechanical gun. It really is an amazing mechanical gun. It's got, you know, a great trigger pull, the technology, it's vertical feed, you put any loader on here, it feels great in the hands, it points well, it shoots really well, it's got a lot of vibration in it and stuff like that, you know, which is, you know, typical of a mechanical gun, but it's not completely distracting. The gun's not really loud, you know, or anything. It's not, you know, it's not really something that's just overwhelming to shoot. Just, you know, it's got a little bit of vibration from the trigger spring that's in there. If you've ever shot an automag, it feels exactly like that, except this is way better than an automag. You don't have to deal with, short stroking. You don't have to deal with your, level 10 kit with your bolt sticking because of the temperature. I mean, it's just going to keep firing every time you pull the trigger. So I think them dropping the price in the mid-300s was a good thing for Tippmann. And this is a really, really nice gun for $350 considering everything that it does. I really don't know what else to say other than that. I mean, if you're looking for a purely airball gun, okay, then there's other guns in the mid-$300 that's going to do you a little bit better. If you're looking for something, if you've been playing for a little bit and you kind of want to dabble in something mechanical, so kind of conserves your paint, maybe you're thinking about getting a pump gun, but you just kind of want something that may also work also on the airball field, this is what I would go with. So carry one gun to the field, you conserve your paint, and then, when you need to get into it, you click it over into electronic mode. But, with that being said, I think Tippmann did a really neat gun here. And it's the one problem with paintball players. Everybody wants something new. Everybody goes, when are they going to come out with something new? Well, they don't really want anything new because they're going to buy it. They just want to bitch about it. And that's pretty much kind of what happened with the crossover. Tippmann came out with a pretty good gun, and everyone just bitched and complained about it. But I think you're going to also be seeing Tippmann Effect using these on the field. I'm not sure for this PSP season. Next PSP season, you're going to see them. I think they're playing D2 with these, and you definitely go play airball with these. No problem at all. Move that trigger spring, and it's going to make the trigger a lot easier to walk, and you're going to be able to rip on it pretty good. But other than that, I was really impressed with the gun. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. I was really impressed with the gun. I think for mid-$300, if you really sit and think about your particular playing style and it looks like it might fit, give it a shot, because it really is a nice shooting gun, especially for right now for mid-$300. Thank you.